Hey y'all, welcome to a best of edition of the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. These best of editions of the show feature amazing guests and episodes of the podcast you may have missed when they first aired. If you are new to the show, these are those can't miss episodes we really want you to listen to. Or maybe you're a long-time listener. We want to bring these episodes back around for you to enjoy again. Our goal is to bring you our best content every week so you have everything that you need to build a better future for your family. So wherever you are listening today, enjoy this week's best of edition of the Flip Lifestyle Podcast.
Welcome to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast, where life always comes before work. We're your hosts, Shane and Jocelyn Sams. We're a real family that figured out how to make our entire living online. And now we help other families do the same. Are you ready to flip your life? All right, let's get started. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast. Great to be back with you again today. This is going to be a solo show with just me and Jocelyn. We are not going to have a guest on the program today as we continue to tell you a little bit more about our story about how two normal people from Kentucky were able to start an online business with no money, no time, while working full time, raising kids. And basically how, maybe you can do it too. So that's what we're doing today. We're talking about the next chapter in our story. Last week, we told you a little bit about our early, life, about where we came from, where we grew up before Jocelyn and I knew each other. And the next chapter in our story is actually about how we met in college at the University of Kentucky.
All right, so in our last episode, we were talking about how young I was when I went to college. And at the time, I thought I was all grown up and independent. But looking back now, I realize how incredibly young and naive I really was.
You were not even you technically were not even legally of age. You were not even 18 years old when you moved away from home. You couldn't even vote when you moved out of your hometown and moved to the big city.
Yeah, and the scary thing about that is I think about how my son is 8. I was 9 years older than him when I went to college. That's just scary. I mean, I can't even picture my son being that age. And I know that there's a big difference between 8 and 17, but still, there's scary. Not as big of a difference as you
there's
think.
No way we would ever let our kids, Jocelyn, her birthday is on March 27th. My birthday is actually on March 28th. Funny story about that. We'll talk about that soon. I'll tell you about that later. Jocelyn was born on March 27th, so she turned 17 on March 27th of her senior year. And then did you move in June, or when did you?
I think it was probably early August.
Of
that year, when I moved into the dorms, and I could not wait. I was counting down the minutes. I was just a very independent person. I knew that it would be no problem. And honestly, I never even really went home. I mean, I went home sometimes. You know how sometimes people in college, they'll go home every single weekend. Yeah, that was not me. I went home maybe once a month if I had to.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because I had a bad home life or anything like that. I was just that fiercely independent. I just wanted to do my own thing.
So you graduated in 97. So I had already been in college a year then, right? When you came to college.
Yeah, so you were a sophomore when I got there.
That's right. So I graduated in 1996, and I was kind of the same way. I had a dream my whole life to go to the University of Kentucky.
And I did too.
Yeah, which is hilarious because I didn't really work hard enough in school to actually get the grades to go to college anywhere. But I wanted to go to the University of Kentucky. I refused to go anywhere else on any college visits. I didn't go look at any other schools. Didn't go anywhere. I just wanted to go to the University of Kentucky because I loved Kentucky basketball, loved Kentucky football. And I just really wanted to go live in Lexington.
And for me, I just really wanted an escape from small town life. Most people where I'm from, they went to either Western Kentucky University, which is actually where I had my master's degree from. They went to Murray State University. Both are fine schools. Nothing wrong with them at all. It's just I did not want to go there. And I wanted to get away. I wanted to get out of small town life and experience something new. And a funny story is I even got a scholarship to Murray State University. I had applied to 2 places. I applied to Murray State and I applied to UK. And I wasn't able to apply for scholarships for UK because you had to have a 28 on the ACT.
So she was just a little shy.
I took it 4 times, and the highest I could get was a 27.
But she could have went to school for free at Murray, right? Like you had it was like dorms and tuition or something?
Part of it was covered. I can't remember exactly what it was. It
would have been a lot cheaper, though.
Yeah, so it would have been a lot less expensive. But I talked to my parents, and they basically said, look, you've worked really hard all through school. You should do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I did. And
you did.
I felt like that was just where I was supposed to be.
I wonder if it's because I was there. The fates were telling you the love of your life and you're the shining star of your universe is waiting for you at the University of Kentucky.
Right.
Right? Your knight in shining armor riding the white horse. Okay. All right. No, but I actually wanted to go to UK really bad too. So when I graduated high school, I had no scholarship offers. I had absolutely nothing. Because
how did you even get in?
I barely made it in. Like, I had like the exact GPA where you could barely every once in a while apply and get in. And actually, I didn't go straight to the University of Kentucky. I did go live in the dorms my first year, and I lived on campus. But I went to there was a community college that was like attached to UK.
So you could still live in the dorms?
Yeah, you could live in the dorms. You could go to UK, but you went to like the Lexington Community College part, which was over by the football stadium. So I actually went to that first. That was my first year. And my shining principles as a student and just the excellent student I was, of course, I did not barely ever go to class. Like, I had a crazy roommate who ended up failing out of school, which is a whole other ball of wax. And I was around some people who weren't the best examples of human beings that you could probably hang out with in your life. I didn't go to class very much. I almost failed out. Like my first semester, I made like all D's and like 1 C or something. And I actually dropped a course instead of failing it so I only ended up getting like 12 hours that semester. And I actually came home and one day my dad put me in his car and he goes, hey, come up to the office with me. And I'm like, all right, I'm home for Christmas or something. I'll ride up there with you. So my dad gets in the car and he goes by his office and I kind of look over at him like, what are you doing? And he didn't say anything, didn't say a word. And he just goes and gets on the interstate. And I'm like, oh man, he got my report card. He knows my grades were terrible. This is what this is all about right here. He takes me 30 minutes south to this really teeny tiny town in the middle of nowhere that has this little bitty NAIA college tucked over in like the mountains. There's probably not 1,000, maybe at this time, maybe 1,000 people went to the whole school. And he just pulls off the interstate and he starts driving around campus. And for like 20 minutes, he wouldn't say a word to me. And then finally he looks over at me and goes, pretty campus, huh? If your grades aren't better next semester, you're going to be going to school here. So get used to it. And then he just drove me home. So like I literally almost like screwed it up before you even got to college and would have never met you in the first place. And if you almost went to Murray, our path legit, we were almost that Ships in the Night song. You know what I mean? Just kind of crossed. So I got my act together. I met this girl that helped me get through algebra the second semester. And then I actually studied as much as I could and did a lot better that second semester. Not my best semester ever. That was when I met Jocelyn. But that got me through my freshman year. And then you lived in the dorm next door to me when you were a freshman and I was a sophomore, right?
Yeah, so I lived in the building that was like adjacent to where Shane lived.
We look back on it now that we didn't meet until Jocelyn was a sophomore because we ended up both moving dorms and we lived in the same dorm. I can think back and we looked and we think there's two places where our paths kind of crossed. One night I was over at another girl's room, a friend of mine from high school, and Jocelyn lived next door to her. And I was sitting on the bed and
this story dates us a bit.
This story dates us a bit because Jocelyn came, there was a knock on the door. There was a bunch of us in there and this beautiful girl came to the door. I was like, who is that? I just caught a brief glimpse of her and I heard she was coming to borrow the phone book.
That's right.
That's right. Like an actual, like the phone book, like you had to flip through and get.
Some people listening to this podcast probably don't even know what a phone book is.
Some of you may not even know what a phone book is, but we had phone books, okay? So she came by to borrow the phone book to call like a pizza place or something. I don't know what it was. But I remember just asking my friend, I was like, who's that? And she's like, oh, just the girl who lives next door. Didn't think anything of it. And then that winter, there was a huge snow. It was like the only time our entire college career.
And classes actually got canceled.
Yes, the classes got canceled at UK. So there was like people were everywhere having snowball fights. And like me and some buddies were outside having a snowball fight, and a bunch of girls walked out of your dorm. And I think you were one of them. And I think we started throwing snowballs at you guys or something, trying to get you to
We're not 100% sure.
join us. But like something like this happened. But like we're pretty sure that our paths kind of crossed like a couple times. What really happened was the second year Jocelyn was there, my third year, I moved to a dorm that was called the Wellness Dorm, because it had a gym in the basement. And Jocelyn,
I also moved to that dorm because it had a gym in the basement, and because there was no smoking allowed. Because at that time, smoking was still allowed.
At that time, you
dorms.
could smoke right up in the dorms in your college. You know what I mean? And so we ended up moving into the same dorm. So we're there for a little while, and I was still kind of wild. And I was actually going out one night with my friends. We would drive down to Richmond, Kentucky to go hang out and like, you know, just
dance
clubs and, you know, college stuff. And so me and two of my buddies were getting ready to go out. I lived on the second floor. Jocelyn, I didn't know this at the time, but she lived on the third floor. And my buddies lived on the first floor. So I was getting dressed up and sprayed my $10 Walmart cologne on so the ladies would be smelling good. You know what I mean?
That's what stopped me in my tracks.
That's right. That $10 Walmart cologne, baby. I think it was Gravity. That's what it was. It was that Gravity. You'll get you some of that Gravity, guys. I'm telling you. It brings the ladies in like crazy. Flies to honey. I'm telling you. Anyway, so I go out my dorm, and I'll never forget this moment of my life. I walk down the stairs, and as I'm going down to go with my friends to chase women, basically Jocelyn walked in, and she was coming up the stairs. Where were you coming from? Work? Or?
No, I had just come from the gym. I had been working out.
Okay. So Jocelyn was coming up the stairs, and I had to talk. I had to talk to her. I had to stop her. Something about that moment was just like I had to stop her. So she kind of walked up the steps a little bit, and I kind of walked a little bit past her. And I said, and I turned as I passed her, and I said, "Hey, what's your name?" And just, you know, "Hey, what's your name?" And Jocelyn turned around and said,
"My name is Jocelyn."
Jocelyn what? Jocelyn
Haravi.
Her name is Jocelyn Haravi. And I said, "Whoa, where are you from? Is that foreign?" And she's like, "Kentucky." I thought like Haravi sounds like some kind of foreign exotic name.
And it is. It's from
Czechoslovakian, yeah. So I thought to myself, "Whoa, I've got this exotic foreign woman walking into my dorm." But turns out she was just from Western Kentucky. You know what I mean? But anyway, I was going out with my friends, and I didn't have time to talk to her. And like, I don't really remember exactly what happened after that. But we just kind of exchanged names and said, "Hey, you know, kind of hope we run into each other at some time." And she went up, and I went down. So, like, did you think anything of that first encounter, like, at all? Like,
who's this creepy guy talking to me on the stairs?
Right.
With the terrible cologne. No, I mean...
that guy smelled terrible. He buys his cologne at Walmart. What a cheapo. All right.
No, I mean, I remember it, but, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't...
It was kind of passing, so it wasn't that big a deal. But, like, it definitely left an impression on me, because I went to my friend's room. They were downstairs, and I was looking down at the ground, just shaking my head like, that girl was awesome. Like, and I sat down on my buddy's bed, and they're like, "Dude, what is wrong with you?" At that moment, just knowing Jocelyn's name, I looked at my friends and I said, "I just met the girl that I'm going to marry. I know it. I don't know how I know it. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just met the girl that I'm going to marry." And they're like, "All right, shut up. Let's go." So we go on. And we go out, we come back, and I don't know how long it was between when we ran into each other again. Was it
probably like a week or maybe two? I don't know.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So I was standing in the lobby talking to a buddy of mine who was working at the desk, and
it was like a mutual friend.
Yeah, mutual friend. So Jocelyn comes in the door on this day, and she comes up and she says something to the guy, and I was like, "Hey," and she's like, "Hey," and we kind of, you know, remembered each other. And Jocelyn and I started talking, and I said, you know, so we did the classic, "What's your major? What are you studying?" And, you know, and Jocelyn says computers. She says she's studying computers. And I'm like, "Really?" Because I am having some computer problems. And since you are a pro at computers, maybe you could totally help me with that. So I'm like, I have a printer. My printer will not print. I cannot get my printer to print. So could you come up to my room and check out my printer maybe?
And being the nerd and nice person that I am, I said, sure, I'll be happy to help you.
So did you go back to your room first or did you just come straight up with me?
No, I think I just came up there.
Yeah, So
that's smart.
That's smart, right? Strange guy. I'm inviting you to his room in the dorm to, fix his printer. So we go up there and, it was the darndest thing. My printer worked when Jocelyn...
It worked with no issues at all.
Jocelyn sat down.
That's shocking.
And basically hit print and the thing printed. But I swear that there was a problem at one time with the printer. And I was not just telling you that so you would come hang out with me. I promise.
Right.
Yeah. So Jocelyn comes to my room and we discover that the printer is broken. And she's probably at this point now thinking, okay, this guy just totally lied to me to come up to his room and hang out with him. So I'm like, okay, let's talk. What are we going to talk about? So we start doing the other things. Like we start saying like, where are you from? And Jocelyn's like, I'm from Western Kentucky. And I'm like, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. And then we start talking and we start...
He's like, how old are you? And I'm like, well, I'm 18. Oh, goodness, I was 18.
Yeah, barely legal.
And
she was barely legal.
He's like, oh, well, when do you turn 19? I'm like, March 27th. And he's like, no way, my birthday's March 28th. And I'm like, okay, buddy.
All right, so you lied to me about the printer. You told me your birthday's the day after mine. So Jocelyn literally, and this is like a window. I should have saw this window into her pragmatic, logical lifestyle. She literally made me show her my ID, like right there. Like the conversation didn't get to go 1 minute further until I actually had to pull out my driver's license and prove to her that my birthday actually was the day after hers. So that was weird. And then like all these weird coincidences.
Then we started talking about like what kind of cars we had, and I'm like, well, I drive a Buick. He's like, I drive a Buick too.
So like,
I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man.
This is not right. So like, but it was so crazy how everything just totally lined up. Like and I was like, I knew it. I knew I was going to marry this girl. So then like, that awkward moment in like when you start a relationship where you kind of that first time you're together and you're like, okay, what do I say next? What do I do next? And I was sitting there like, I've got to ask this girl out. I have to ask her to go with me. Well, as fate would have it, and for those of you who are longtime listeners of the Flip Lifestyle podcast, you know that I am a enormous pro wrestling fan. Like I go to WrestleMania, I go to pay-per-views, I watch wrestling every week still, and I always have since I was a little kid. Me and my brother used to sneak and turn on wrestling at 11 p.m. on USA. Like Monday nights, my mom would be in the next room and we would have the volume off and we would just try to read their lips and watch them like do their wrestling. So I had ordered 3 tickets to WCW Professional Wrestling at Rupp Arena. They were doing a television taping. So this was like a big, wrestling promotion. And I looked down and my buddies had sold me out. I had bought these tickets and the 2 guys that were going to go with me had totally sold me out and said they couldn't go. And I looked down and I said, that's what I'll do. I'll ask her to go with me to wrestling. So I looked over at Jocelyn and I said, hey, do you like pro wrestling? And she just looked at me. And I'm like,
no. And I'm still like, no.
No, I don't. And I was like, well, look, listen, even if you don't like it, you'll have a good time. Like, come with me. My friends sold me out. So why don't you come to pro wrestling with me? We'll go. It'll be awesome. And I have no idea why she said yes, but you did. You said yes, and it was incredible. Why did you say yes to that?
I have no idea.
It was the cologne. That's what it was. It was like, man, I've got to sit by this guy for 6 hours at a wrestling taping because he smells good. Anyway.
Well, I didn't realize it was 6 hours. Like
neither did I.
Me knowing nothing about wrestling.
Right.
Like I don't know anything about it.
So we get there, and I thought it was like a 2-hour show, but they did a double taping of wrestling, and it was like 6 straight hours of professional wrestling. And this huge, enormous dude sat beside us. Like, I mean, the dude weighed like probably 500 pounds. And like every time one of us would get up and like climb around him, he would be like, hey, buddy, could you bring me back a hot dog or a beer or something, man? And it's like, I'm just so big, I can't get up. So like, this is Jocelyn's first date. 6 hours of pro wrestling, sitting by me in my Walmart cologne, and this 600-pound guy who's like asking her to bring him hot dogs. And it was the best first date ever, and that's why you are still here with me today, right?
Right. That wrestling really sealed the deal, let me tell you.
But the funny thing was, like, really after that moment, we've never left each other's side for any extended period of time, since then, not being a couple moving toward living our life together. And, it was just a really, really cool deal.
I just think back on those times now and just think about how young we really were. I mean, Shane was 20 when we met and I was 18. I mean, I just think back on that and
kids,
wow.
Man. Kids.
I mean, it's crazy that, we made it this long. It wasn't without any bumps in the road, of course. I mean, everybody has them. But yeah, it's been kind of crazy. But I think back to college and like just some of the things that happened along the way that helped us, I think, to be where we are today. The first thing for me is I started college with the intention of being either a computer programmer or a systems analyst. That's what I wanted to do when I grow up. Nerd alert. And
Most people dream of, I want to be a famous athlete. I'd love to be a movie star. Systems analysis. Jocelyn.
The total shock to long-term listeners, I'm sure. But, like I said in the last episode, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do for sure, but I knew that I really liked working with computers and programming and other nerdy stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, like maybe that'll be a good thing. At the University of Kentucky, though, the systems analysis department was in the business department. So I kind of got a little bit of business because you had to have some business classes in with your systems analysis. So my plan was to be a business major and a computer science minor. Well, in the middle of one of my first programming classes, it might have been my second one, I can't remember. The instructor basically accused me and my roommate of cheating in programming. We did not. I will maintain that to this day, 20 years later.
Yeah. Jocelyn has never cheated. Jocelyn doesn't cheat at like board games or like, anything at all, like ever would cheat at anything. It's
and,
hilarious.
if I did it, I would admit it, but we honestly did not. It was just kind of a weird situation. My roommate and I, we were working on something together. We were in the same class, and basically the time stamp on the assignment was exactly the same, like even down to the millisecond. And while I admit that that is unusual, like it was totally innocent. We did not do any cheating. We did work together, but that wasn't what she was trying to say. So anyway, this lady accused me of cheating, and that just sort of really affected me. Like I was just really upset about that. And honestly, I just didn't even want to continue on in the program. Like that's how much it just really affected me. So I decided, okay, this programming thing I don't know about, but I think I still want to stay in business. So I ended up getting a job at the computer lab in the chemistry and physics building. And I had 2 jobs in college. I worked there as a computer lab clerk, and then I was also a salesperson at the fitness center. So I worked at an all-women's fitness center, and I did sales. So those experiences sort of got me thinking, I guess, a little bit broader.
Yeah.
I started becoming interested in sales and marketing because I worked in sales at this gym, and it's something I had never done before, but I actually kind of liked. And I started thinking, okay, well, what if I could maybe open a gym one day? Like that would be cool. So that sort of got my entrepreneurship wheels spinning a little bit.
And when I first met Jocelyn, she was building bikes at Toys R Us. And I would go pick her up at Toys R Us when she would get off work. And then it's so funny. Jocelyn and I, we were just broke in college, and like we would always kind of try to pay for things at the first. And Jocelyn's not a let the dude pay her way kind of gal. You know what I mean? But like what we would do is we would get our paychecks on opposite weeks. So like I would pay for dinner one week, and then Jocelyn would pay for dinner next because we were like so broke. I mean, Jocelyn was working like 2 jobs one time. And I would go sit in the computer lab with Jocelyn, and she would be at work, and I would just go and hang out at one of the computers while she was there with her. I've heard you tell that story before, but something just like clicked to me too. Later on in our story, a lot of you know like why we got into this. We had a terrible experience with our child,
which we're going to get into in future
later.
Episodes.
And we had a boss that was, it was just awful. And anybody out there who's ever dealt with a bad boss, you know what that feels like. Or if you've had something happen to your child, you know what that feels like. And we'll get more into that. But like it's in this microcosm of the story that you just told, like Jocelyn dealing with someone totally out of her control who accused her of something stupid. Like you kind of realize that someone could affect you, no power of your own that was higher up than you. And you just said, screw it, I'm going to go do something else, and you left the program. And it's amazing for me to even now to hear that, connecting that dot back, that's also not just a seed of your entrepreneurial bug or whatever, but of kind of our mentality that was forming even at the time. We're not going to let other people ruin our life or dictate our life. And you just said, I'm going to go a different direction. And it's so hard. I know that a lot of people listening to this, it's so hard to change direction. You get inertia. So like you have people at home telling you, oh yeah, you should be a computer programmer. But you're like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to remove this bad thing from my life and move on. You know, that's something that we did later on in a very huge scale when we left our jobs.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, it's something that happened. I didn't like it, so I did something different. So it definitely has, I think, some implications for things that happen later on in life. But as I was starting to do the sales job, I started kind of becoming more interested in sales. And I even took an entrepreneurship class because it was required in business to do. And once I took that class, I even have a business plan. I'll see if I can find it.
You still have it. I've seen it recently.
Have it. I'm not sure where it's at. But I even created a business plan for this entrepreneurship class. And I can remember doing that just so vividly. And at that moment, I was like, okay, do I really want to design systems my whole life? And not to mention, that program was a master's degree program. And I was like, I do not want to go to any more school. At the time, I was like, this is it. I'm going to do 4 years and I'm done. So what I decided to do, I'm like, okay, this systems analysis thing, I don't think it's going to work out either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see what can I finish in 4 years with the courses that I already have. What can I do in 4 years? So I started looking at all the programs. So what I settled with was management. So I actually have a Bachelor of Business Administration in Management because that was the program I could finish in 4 years.
Which is hilarious because Jocelyn hates managing any people at all.
I really do.
Like, period. Like, she hates it with a passion. So it's funny, like when we did that, what's your major thing? Mine is, you know, I have a degree in education. I was a history teacher. And the reason that I did that was basically because my dad told me to. I think the grand plan for him was to have all of his sons working for him in his insurance agency.
Much more to come on that.
Much more to come on that. I actually had my insurance license already. I got it when I was like 18 years old. And he said, I'll never forget him telling me, I'm like, Dad, what do I major in? What do I do, man? I don't know what I want to do. And he said, be a teacher. Worst case scenario, you'll always have a job. They always need teachers somewhere. And it's a steady paycheck with benefits. And worst case scenario, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you'll be all right. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I liked history. I liked political science. I hated math, so it got me as far away from math classes as possible once you get through your basics. And I was like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. I did some business classes, but didn't want to do business. I just was not even interested in doing it. Like, accounting almost made my head explode. When I took an accounting class, I got a D, and I was like, man, I'm out.
My accounting has never been very great.
I look back on that, and I'm really glad that I've got my teaching degree. It opened doors for me to coach football. It opened doors for me to make money online eventually. But one thing that I really look back on, and I look at that, was my mentality, and the mentality that kind of the world teaches to kind of survive. Oh, you can survive. You can plan for the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, you won't starve to death, you know? And I'm so blessed that my dad gave me that advice, and I'm glad I've got my degree. But like, that kind of is not the mentality that we have anymore. Like I want a mentality of abundance and success and drive and striving for something more. You know, that's something that I picked up even coaching football is, you know, let's get better. Let's win the next game. Let's win the next game by 2 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. I just don't want to live life good enough. I don't want to live life planning for the worst case scenario, or this is the worst thing that could happen, and that's not that bad. And I feel like that's why I picked my degree in college. Was I was trying to set a bar that I couldn't fall below, but almost like a ceiling that I could never really rise above either.
And we know that looking back. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, but now looking back, we're like, wow, you know, maybe that wasn't
the right mentality, basically. So, you know, and I think it was from my dad. Like, he was an entrepreneur. He went through the ups and downs, the roller coaster of struggling with his own business. It was a great thing. It was a bad thing. And I think he just wanted a very stable job for me. He wanted me to know I was okay. And I think that that's just, now looking back, knowing what we know now, knowing that anyone can do this online business thing, knowing that you can make everything happen in your own life, you can control your own destiny. And if you just go get it, that there is unlimited potential in all of us. I mean, there's no cap on what any of us can accomplish. Knowing that now, I wish I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self that you don't have to plan your life around the worst case scenario. You don't have to be scared what happens if I take a risk or take a chance and chase a dream, instead of just picking that nice, safe, railroad track stable path back in college. So basically, Jocelyn goes through, and we actually graduated in the same year, even though I started college before her because I was on the 5-year plan, and I may have had to retake a few classes, quote unquote. So we actually graduated in the same year. Funny story is not the same month though. I walked graduation, but I had actually gotten mad at a teacher because she was terrible. She wasn't teaching. The class was out of control, and I just stopped going to the class because I was like, "This is ridiculous. I'm not wasting my time here." And so she totally failed me, and I tried to argue it that she was terrible and it didn't work. So anyway, I had to go to summer school to finish my degree that year, but we did graduate in 2001. Was that right? Yeah, 2001. So Jocelyn and I graduated school, and some people were like, propose, get married, and things like that. But Jocelyn and I didn't really work on anyone else's timetable. We were not ready to get married, or maybe Jocelyn didn't want to marry me because I was
probably
a little immature at the time.
No, I mean, we were just super young still. I mean, I was 21, you were 23, and
I kind of had it in my mind too that I didn't want to get married till I was like 25. Like I wanted to work a little bit and do some things. So
we just kind of felt like we needed to just explore the world a little bit and
figure out what we wanted to do with our lives.
Be real adults. I mean, in college, you're not a real adult.
Yeah,
you're
it's
still
like part-time
kind of,
adult.
Yeah, so you're still kind of with your mom and dad. So we wanted to live on our own for a while and see how that worked out.
So basically what we did was we actually moved back to my hometown. Jocelyn and rode around with my dad, and he introduced her to everyone in town trying to help her find a job.
I got my very first apartment living all by myself.
That's right.
So that was super exciting.
I went to work for my dad selling insurance, which we're going to get into on the next episode and how fun that was. And then Jocelyn got a job. Where did you work first?
So my very first job ever was selling commercial dishwashers, but
like big dishwashers in the back of like restaurants, basically.
Yeah, it was my first ever real job, and I have a lot more to say about that, and we will get into that more in the next episode.
So that gives you a little more background about where we come from, our education, like how we met, and how I tricked Jocelyn into being my girlfriend by coming to wrestling with me. We're about to take the next step in our journey that's really going to push us toward where we are today. And this is where we start growing up, start settling in, and start moving into our careers. And, we start experiencing those adult things that really most of you listening have probably felt like, should I be doing this? Like, why am I giving so much control of my life to people? Why am I working for someone else? Could I do something on my own? We're going to take you through that journey that led us to not only, kind of turning our back up against society and getting out of the world's view of what we should do and moving into online business and really flipping our life upside down. So that's all the time we have for next week. Tune in when we will go into our first careers and when we really started pursuing our dreams. And I'm going to tell you the story of my romantic storybook proposal to Jocelyn and how I convinced her to be my bride. So
#nomance.
There's no romance in this story. So you're going to want to tune in next week. And I had actually upgraded my cologne at this time. I wasn't doing the Walmart cologne anymore, so maybe that had something to do with it. So tune in next week and we'll get into that, and we'll take you to the next step of our flipped lifestyle journey.
Thank you for listening to this best of edition of the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. We would love to help you take your next steps toward your goals. We have a free online business quick start course over at our website at flippedlifestyle.com. This course will help you set big goals and make them happen, find and validate your ideas today, and help you identify and find your perfect customers. Our online business quick start guide is a free resource, and you can get it right now over at flippedlifestyle.com. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com. Head there right now and download your free resource today.